Most people spend their lives chasing approval, comparing themselves to others, and waiting for external validation. But the truth is, when your energy is scattered outside of you, you lose your power. This talk will show you how to break free, focus entirely on yourself, and transform your life so deeply that the world will have no choice but to notice. Most people live their lives unaware that their greatest power is constantly being given away. Every time you worry about what someone thinks of you, every time you compare yourself to someone else's progress, every time you replay an old argument in your mind, you are giving a piece of your energy to that person, to that moment, to that memory. Imagine how many fragments of yourself are scattered across the years. Moments of guilt, shame, regret, moments when you felt small, judged, or ignored. Those pieces of energy are like open tabs on a computer, draining your system, slowing down your performance, keeping you stuck. And the very reason you feel tired, uninspired, or powerless is not because you don't have energy. It's because your energy is not with you. Reclaiming inner energy begins with awareness. Awareness is the flashlight that shines into the dark corners of your mind, showing you where you've left parts of yourself behind. When you notice that your thoughts are constantly orbiting around someone else's opinion of you, you can recognize that your power has been invested outside of you. When you realize that most of your day is spent in mental rehearsals of worst-case scenarios, you can see that your energy is locked in fear of a future that doesn't even exist yet. Awareness gives you the ability to pause, to ask, where is my attention right now? Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. And if your attention is always outside of you, then your energy is never available for your own growth. The process of reclaiming inner energy is like calling back every piece of yourself that you've scattered. Think of it as pulling your spirit back into alignment, gathering the threads of your focus, and weaving them into a single direction. You do this by choosing, consciously, to withdraw attention from everything that drains you. The moment you stop feeding an old story, it begins to dissolve. The moment you refuse to replay an argument in your head, you stop fueling it with your life force. The moment you stop measuring your worth against another person's journey, you unplug from the illusion that you are behind. This is not about ignoring the world. It is about no longer letting the world dictate who you are. The body, too, holds on to these fragments of energy. The tension in your chest, the knot in your stomach, the tightness in your jaw. These are records of the past, physical imprints of moments where you handed over your power. To reclaim that energy, you must bring breath and presence into those places. When you sit in stillness, when you breathe deeply and consciously, you are telling your body it is safe to let go. And as the body releases, the energy that was once locked in survival begins to flow back into creation. You shift from being a prisoner of stress to a creator of possibility. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is the highest act of responsibility. Because when your energy is yours, when it is no longer dispersed in the opinions, memories, and fears of others, you have the capacity to direct it toward building the life you desire. Think about this. Most people start their mornings with their minds already in the past or the future. They wake up and immediately remember everything they have to worry about. They pick up their phone and begin scrolling through other people's lives, unconsciously measuring themselves against a highlight reel that isn't even real. Before the day has even started, their energy is gone. But what happens when you wake up and decide, today, my attention belongs to me? What happens when you choose to invest that energy into gratitude, into vision, into growth? Suddenly, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the author of your reality. As you reclaim your energy, you begin to feel an entirely new level of vitality. The tiredness you thought was physical fatigue was, in truth, energetic depletion. The lack of motivation you thought was laziness was simply a lack of available energy for yourself. When your energy is back in your body, you feel alive, clear, and focused. You are no longer seeking validation outside of you because you are filled from within. You no longer need to chase approval because you carry a deep sense of wholeness. And that wholeness radiates outward. It becomes magnetic. People will notice it even if you say nothing. They will sense a shift in your presence. And this is how you begin to shock the world, not by explaining yourself, but by becoming someone whose energy speaks louder than words. Reclaiming your inner energy also changes how you respond to life. When someone criticizes you, you no longer hand over your power to their opinion. When circumstances don't go your way, you no longer collapse into old emotional patterns. Instead, you remain centered, grounded, aware that your energy belongs to you. And in that state, you become untouchable. Life may bring challenges, but you are not drained by them, because your energy is no longer leaking out through reaction and resistance. You are free to respond with clarity instead of compulsion. Every great transformation begins here. Before you can create the life you desire, you must gather the energy to build it. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot construct a future if your energy is stuck in the past. Reclaiming your inner energy is like turning on the power switch within you. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And once you learn how to call back your energy, once you learn how to hold it, to direct it, to focus it, you unlock the very force that shapes reality itself. Once you begin to reclaim your inner energy, the next step is learning how to direct it. Energy without focus is like sunlight scattered across the surface of the earth, warm but unfocused. But when that same light is concentrated through a magnifying glass, it becomes powerful enough to ignite fire. The same principle applies to your mind. Your energy becomes powerful when you gather it and channel it through focused intention. This is not just a poetic metaphor. It is the fundamental way in which your brain, your body, and the field of energy around you respond to thought. Every thought you think carries a frequency. It is not invisible noise in your head. It is measurable energy. Neuroscience has shown that repeated thoughts carve pathways in the brain, like trails worn into a field after being walked again and again. These pathways become habits of mind. They determine how quickly you fall into worry, how naturally you lean towards self-doubt, how automatically you replay old pain. But just as these neural pathways are created, they can also be rewired. Focused intention is the tool that reshapes the brain, breaking old circuits and strengthening new ones. When you repeatedly direct your energy toward gratitude, vision, and possibility, you are physically altering the structure of your brain to reflect that state of being. Your body also responds to intention. Each thought produces a chemical reaction. Think of stress, and your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for survival. Think of joy, and your body releases dopamine and oxytocin, filling you with calm and vitality. In this way, your thoughts are not abstract. They are instructions to your body, shaping the way you feel, the way you act, and even the way you heal. Focused intention trains your body to live in a new emotional reality, long before that reality exists in the external world. When your body feels it, your subconscious believes it. And when your subconscious believes it, you begin to act as though it is already true. But intention is more than brain chemistry and physiology. It extends into the field of energy that surrounds you. The heart produces an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond the body, measurable with modern technology. When your thoughts are coherent with your emotions, when your vision is aligned with a genuine, elevated feeling, your heart and brain begin to move in harmony. This coherence creates a powerful electromagnetic signal that influences not just your biology, but the environment around you. In simple terms, your focused intention becomes a broadcast, a frequency that life itself begins to respond to. Consider how most people use their attention. They wake up and immediately focus on their problems. They replay yesterday's failures. They predict tomorrow's worries. Their energy is directed toward everything they don't want, and yet they wonder why their lives don't change. The truth is, your life is always reflecting the dominant energy you carry. If your intention is scattered, if it is pulled into fear, doubt, and comparison, then your energy is scattered and your results are inconsistent. But when you focus your attention, when you hold a vision with clarity and consistency, your energy sharpens. Life begins to organize around that frequency. This is why focus is more important than intensity. Anyone can feel motivated for a moment. Anyone can make a declaration of change in the heat of frustration. But what creates transformation is sustained attention, returning again and again to the same vision until it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. Every time you invest your attention into that vision, you are feeding it energy. And eventually, what you feed grows. The brain adapts, the body aligns, the environment reorganizes. This is not wishful thinking, it is the science of focused intention. When you practice directing your energy inward, you discover that you are not bound by the old stories of your life. You no longer identify with being the person who failed, who was overlooked, who was betrayed. Instead, you identify with the person you are becoming. And by focusing on that identity with intensity and consistency, you give your brain and body new evidence to follow. Neurons that fire together wire together. Emotions that are rehearsed become natural. Behaviors that are repeated become automatic. Before long, what was once an act of discipline becomes an effortless way of being. Focused intention also teaches you patience. The external world does not always shift overnight, but the internal world does. Each time you hold your attention steady, you are planting seeds in the soil of your subconscious. You may not see the sprout immediately, but beneath the surface, roots are forming. The unseen work is what allows the visible change to eventually burst forth. Most people give up before that moment, doubting that anything is happening, because they cannot yet see it. But those who hold the vision, who continue to feed it with attention and emotion, become the ones who experience breakthroughs that others call miracles. And here is the most profound part. As you strengthen your ability to focus, you stop being enslaved by distractions. You stop leaking your attention into the noise of social media, the opinions of others, the pull of the past. You become the master of your energy, the author of your reality. Life no longer happens to you. You happen to life. And this shift shocks people, because while they are still chasing validation, still pulled by the currents of distraction, you are moving with quiet clarity toward a future of your own design. Most people live on repeat. They wake up in the morning and immediately remember who they were yesterday. The same thoughts run through their minds. The same emotions are triggered by those thoughts. And the same choices are made out of those emotions. The body becomes so conditioned to this cycle that it knows how to be you better than your mind does. You don't even have to consciously think. Your habits, routines, and reactions are the proof that you are living as a predictable pattern. And when life is nothing but a repetition of the past, the future is never new. It is simply the past projected forward. Becoming unpredictable to your past means breaking the loop. It means refusing to wake up every day and step into the same mental and emotional script. The truth is, if you want to create a future that is different from your history, you cannot continue being the same person you have always been. You must learn to think differently, to feel differently, to act differently, until the old self begins to dissolve. You stop rehearsing the same story and you begin creating a new one. This is not easy because the past is seductive. It pulls at you with familiarity. It whispers that you are safe staying the same, even if staying the same keeps you small. The body craves the emotions of the past, the way an addict craves a drug, because survival often feels safer than transformation. But safety and greatness do not live in the same room. When you become unpredictable to your past, you step into the unknown. You interrupt the automatic programs that have been running your life. Instead of waking up and checking your phone first thing in the morning, you sit in silence and connect with a new vision. Instead of reacting with anger when someone pushes your buttons, you pause, breathe, and respond with calm. Instead of telling yourself you are not enough, you train your mind to rehearse a new belief. Each of these choices may feel small, but they are radical acts. Because the moment you make a different choice, you have stepped out of the familiar self and into the unknown self. And it is in the unknown where all possibility lives. The past wants to define you by memory. It tells you that because you failed before, you are destined to fail again. It tells you that because someone hurt you once, you must protect yourself forever. It tells you that because life has always looked one way, it will continue to look that way. But the past is not truth. It is only evidence of what you rehearsed. And evidence can change. You are not bound by the story of yesterday unless you choose to keep telling it. Becoming unpredictable to your past means disrupting the evidence. It means generating new outcomes, new emotions, new stories, until the old version of you no longer has power. This unpredictability is the birthplace of transformation. Think of a river carving its way through stone. Over years, the water has created grooves, patterns, predictable channels where it always flows. That is your brain, deep grooves of habit carved by repetition. But when you decide to redirect the flow, when you say, "I will not think that same thought today," you are beginning to carve a new channel. At first, the old grooves resist. The water tries to flow back into them. But as you persist, the new channel deepens, the old channel dries up, and the river itself transforms. This is what it means to rewire your brain, to break the predictability of the past and create something new. And here is the paradox. When you live unpredictably to your past, the people around you often become shocked. They are used to you being a certain way. They are used to you complaining about the same things, reacting in the same ways, settling into the same patterns. When you change, it disrupts their expectation of you. Some will resist it because your transformation reminds them of their own stagnation. Others will be inspired by it because they see in you the possibility of their own freedom. But whether they resist or admire, one thing is certain: they will notice. They will not be able to ignore the shift in your presence because you are no longer the predictable self they once knew. To become unpredictable to your past, you must also embrace discomfort. The unknown is not always comfortable because it strips away the familiar, but growth is never born from comfort. Each time you feel the pull to slip back into the old self and you resist it, you are reclaiming freedom. Each time you choose a higher thought, a calmer response, a bolder action, you are declaring to the universe, "I am no longer bound by yesterday." And with each declaration, life begins to rearrange itself. Opportunities appear where before there were none. People enter your path who resonate with your new state. Situations unfold that align with your future rather than your history. It is important to understand that unpredictability is not recklessness. It is not about destroying your past or running from responsibility. It is about transcending the identity that no longer serves you. It is about stepping out of the timeline that was built on limitation and entering the one that is built on expansion. The old self may resist, the body may crave its old emotions, but your consistent choice to be new is what creates the breakthrough. And when you do this consistently, the person you once were becomes unrecognizable. Not only to the world, but even to yourself. That is the moment you realize you are no longer living as the predictable product of your past, but as the conscious creator of your future. There is a tendency in human nature to want to prove ourselves. We want others to see our worth, to understand our effort, to acknowledge our growth. We want to explain why we are changing, why we are different, why they should view us in a new light. But explanation has little power. Words can be dismissed, arguments can be ignored, and intentions can be doubted. True transformation does not need explanation, because it speaks louder than any declaration. When you embody change so deeply that it radiates from your presence, the people around you have no choice but to notice. They see the evidence in your actions, in your energy, in the reality you create, and that is what shocks them. Transformation begins quietly. At first, it is internal, unseen. It starts with decisions that no one else is aware of, choosing to meditate instead of scrolling endlessly through distractions, choosing to pause and breathe instead of reacting in anger, choosing to visualize your future instead of replaying your past. No one sees you in those moments, and yet those are the moments that shape who you are becoming. The world may not know what is happening inside of you, but your body knows, your brain knows, your energy field knows. And with time, what is cultivated in private begins to spill outward into every part of your life. When you shock others through transformation, it is because they are witnessing something undeniable. They see the way you carry yourself differently. They feel the calm in your presence. They notice that the things which used to trigger you no longer have the same power. They see results showing up in your life that cannot be explained by luck or coincidence. What they are really seeing is a new level of coherence, a mind, body, and spirit aligned with a higher vision. And this kind of coherence does not require justification. It is self-evident. Most people try to convince the world with words. They spend energy trying to prove to others that they have changed, that they are capable, that they are on a new path. But convincing is wasted energy, because the more you try to force someone to see you differently, the more resistance you encounter. The mind does not change through persuasion. It changes through evidence. When your life becomes evidence of your transformation, people no longer need you to explain. They simply see it, they feel it, they experience it in the way you live. This is why focusing on yourself is the most powerful act of all. When you invest your energy into growth instead of explanation, into creation instead of validation, the results speak on your behalf. You no longer need to defend who you are becoming, because your reality defends you. You no longer need to prove that you are different, because your actions prove it. You no longer need to argue for your worth, because your presence radiates it. And when people see this, they are often stunned. They expected you to remain predictable, to stay in the same cycles, to live out the same limitations. But your transformation makes you unpredictable, and in that unpredictability, you shock them. The beauty of shocking others through transformation is that it is not about them. It is not about revenge. It is not about outshining. It is not about proving anyone wrong. It is simply the natural consequence of becoming fully aligned with yourself. The shock happens because others see in you what they did not expect. They may question how you did it. They may doubt whether it is real. They may even resist acknowledging it. But deep down, they cannot deny what they see. Your transformation becomes a mirror, showing them what is possible in their own lives. Sometimes they are inspired, sometimes they are threatened, but either way, they are moved. And that movement was created not by your explanations, but by your embodiment. Embodiment means living your truth so fully that it cannot be separated from you. It means practicing your vision until it is etched into your nervous system. It means holding the energy of your future self until it becomes second nature. And when you embody change at that level, no one needs to be convinced because everyone can sense it. Think of someone who walks into a room and immediately shifts the atmosphere. Not because they speak loudly, not because they demand attention, but because their presence is undeniable. That is the power of transformation without explanation. It carries its own authority. Transformation also carries a quiet confidence. It does not need to shout. It does not need to broadcast. It does not need to argue for recognition. It simply is. And that quiet confidence is often what shocks people the most. They expect you to justify yourself, to seek their approval, to fall back into old dynamics. But instead, you stand firm, calm, unshaken, and their old expectations of you collapse in the face of your new reality. This is how transformation shifts not only your life, but the relationships and environments around you. Every time you embody a new state of being, you expand what is possible for others to witness. You become living proof that change is real, that growth is possible, that the past does not define the future, and that proof cannot be argued with. It can only be seen. This is why transformation is the greatest form of influence. Not by trying to convince others of who you are, but by becoming so deeply aligned with who you are meant to be that the world sees it without a word from you. The journey of focusing on yourself is the journey of returning to your own power. It begins with reclaiming the energy you have scattered into the opinions, memories, and fears that once defined you. That energy belongs to you, and when you call it back, you discover strength that was always there, waiting to be used. From that place of wholeness, you learn the science of focused intention, directing your energy with clarity and consistency, training your brain, your body, and your heart to align with the vision of your future rather than the repetition of your past. In doing so, you break the cycle of predictability. You stop living as the product of yesterday's stories and step into the unknown, where new choices create new possibilities. You become unpredictable to the self that once kept you small, and in that unpredictability, you find freedom. And when you embody this change fully, when you no longer waste time convincing or explaining, your transformation becomes undeniable. People see it in the way you walk, the way you respond, the life you create. They may not understand how you did it, but they cannot ignore that you did. This is how you shock the world, not through words, but through being. By focusing on yourself, by holding your energy, by aligning with the vision of who you are becoming, you create a life that speaks for itself. The power was never outside of you. It was always within, waiting for the moment you decided to stop chasing, to stop proving, to stop explaining, and to simply live as the fullest expression of who you truly are